Okay, for page 14, go ahead and title it Solving Quadratic Equations. And then pause the video and write down these two sets of steps. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the examples below. Okay? For the first example, the directions say to find the solutions to each equation. Solutions mean find the values of x that when you square it and add x, you get 42. Or when you plug it into this equation over here, you get a true statement on the left and the right-hand side. They both equal the same number. So for step 1, it says to write the equation with 0 on one side. So either I can move the x squared and the x to the right by subtracting them, or I can move the 42 to the left by subtracting it. And so I'll go ahead and subtract 42 from both sides first. I've completed step 1. Step 2 says to factor. And so in order to factor this, you've done it foldable on your factoring skills. So in order to factor this, I need two factors of negative 42 that when I sum them, I get positive 1x. And so in this case, those numbers are positive 7 and negative 6. So in one parentheses, I'm going to have x plus 7, and in the other, I'm going to have x minus 6. You could FOIL this back out to make sure that you get the right answer, and you will get this trinomial right above. Now, we'll go ahead and solve each of those parentheses for 0. So I get x equals negative 7 and x equals 6. You should also check your answer by substituting it back in to make sure you get the same thing. And so if I plug negative 7 into x and square it, I get 49. If I plug it into x here, I get 49 plus negative 7. And when I add those two together, I truly do get 42. If you plug in 6, you get 6 squared, which is 36. Add that to 6, and again, you do get 42. So we know that the answer is correct. For number 2, we have y squared equals 2y. So we'll complete step 1 again by moving the 2y to the left-hand side. So I end up with y squared minus 2y equals 0. Now, since there's only two terms, you would check to see if this is a difference of squares or a sum of squares. But since it's not, you can try a GCF. I do have a GCF of y, so I'll go ahead and take that out to get y, parenthesis, y minus 2 equals 0. I'll set each of those equal to 0, and I'll get y equals 0 and y equals 2. If you plug in 0 and square it on the left-hand side, you get 0. On the right-hand side, if you do 2 times 0, you get 0. So you do get the same answer on both sides. And if you plug in 2, 2 squared is 4, and 2 times 2 is also 4, so you know you've got it right. I just didn't have any room to check it, and it was an easy one. I just did that one in my head. Okay, for number 3. Making it a little bit harder, we've got 2x squared minus 8x minus 4 equals 3x minus x squared. You can move whichever way you want, either to the left or the right. You'll end up with the same answer in the end. I'm not going to move the 2x squared to the right because I'll end up getting negative 3x squared when I subtract 2x squared to the right-hand side, and I'd rather work with a positive on my x squared. So I'm going to add x squared to the left, which means I'm going to subtract 3x to the left as well. So 2x squared plus 1x squared is 3x squared. Negative 8x minus 3x is negative 11x. And then minus 4 equals 0. Now from here, you need to factor using your techniques on page 13. So whether you use the A times C method or the cross method or just trial and error, you'll end up with 3x plus 1 and x minus 4 in parentheses, which means x equals negative 1/3 is one of my answers, and x equals 4 is my second answer. Okay, I didn't have enough room to check this one either, so we're going to go ahead and move on to example 4. Now, example 4 is in a different color. It's actually in the same color as the steps above here. It's in this blue. And so this one's a little bit different from the other 3 that we just did. It says if the bx term is missing, we're going to do a few different steps. It's a lot easier to solve a problem like this. It says move the variables to one side, but then you move the constants to the opposite side. So we're not making it equal to 0 on one side as opposed to the original directions that I gave. And then we'll solve for x and we'll check our answers. So this is a lot easier in this case because I don't have that middle term of x. So my example 4 is 4x squared minus 5 equals 4. It said to move the variables to one side and the constants to the opposite side. So I'll move the 5 to the right by adding both sides by 5. And so when I do that, I get 4x squared equals 9. The next step said to solve for x. And so when I do that, I get x squared equals 9/4. And then take the square root of both sides. Just remember, when you take the square root of both sides, when you have an x squared involved, this x on the left-hand side could have either been positive or negative, such that when you squared it, you would still get positive 9/4. And then when you take the square root of 9/4, you're going to square root the 9 and the 4 to get 3/2. So your final answers then are going to be x equals positive 3/2 and x equals negative 3/2. And that's it for this video.